Hello, my name is Terri Brinston, and I am a registered nurse and also a teacher. Um, I wanted to send this out because I am recovering from the coronavirus, and I am extremely disturbed by what I'm seeing as far as posts and as it pertains to people wearing masks when they go out. And at first I was extremely angry because I know how effective it is to wear the mask, and something as simple as that. Why are we having such a hard time with it as a people? I'm so disturbed by just the lack of unity um, amongst us all, because we didn't get this with the lack of unity in other times. For example, when we had 9/11, people were just so moved by the loss of life. In New York, over 4,000 people died, and due to an act of terrorism. And I just remember the world mourning and being on the same page, and how we lost a lot of freedoms after that. You know, had to wait in longer lines at the airport, and we couldn't go to the gate anymore. And everybody seemed to be okay with that because it would help the greater good. It would help people to reduce the chances of this happening again. But here we are, and we can all play a part in combating this virus. And we got all of this fighting amongst ourselves. So I thought it would be important for me as an educator and also a registered nurse and also a victim of the coronavirus to explain why it's important for us to wear a mask. And I'll explain it to you like this. In order to prevent the spread of any kind of infection, it could be a virus or a cold or bacteria, there's so many things that have to work out, have to be in place before it can be spreaded from person to person. And the goal is to get rid of one of the things that can prevent it, that can actually prevent it from spreading. For example, I'll give you the example of the chain of infection. Before an infection can go from one person to another, it has to have 6 components in order for it to actually be able to be spread. These components, if you think of it as a real chain, links in a chain, and our goal is to break any part of the link. So I'll tell you each part of the chain. One part of the chain is, of course, you have to have the pathogen. The pathogen is the disease mechanism. It's the infectious agent. And so we'll use that. The pathogen for this example, we'll say it's the coronavirus. Now, the second part of the chain that has to be in place, remember I said there's 6 parts, and they all need to be in place in order for the pathogen to actually be spreaded from person to person. So you have the pathogen, the infectious agent. If that is present, then it has the possibility of being spread. The second part of the chain is the source of reservoir. It's where the pathogen likes to hang out. Well, we're talking about the coronavirus. It likes to hang out in the lungs. And so that's a very good place for it to grow. And it takes over the body, and all of that science and all of that, the way that it takes down the body. And I'll talk about that another time. But that reservoir is where it likes to hang out. So once the coronavirus gets into your lungs, it attacks it, and then it likes to hang out. The third part of the chain that has to be present in order for it to be passed from person to person is the portal of exit. So now that it's sitting inside of your lungs, in order to pass it from person to person, it has to have a portal of exit. So the way that the coronavirus actually leaves your body is through coughing, sneezing, speaking, and singing. So anytime you blow out and there's droplets, I don't know if you've ever looked at an array of light, and you're in a dark room and you look at a ray of light that's coming into the room, and you see all the pathogens that are flying around. Well, when you breathe out and it's particles or droplets that come out, you can sometimes talk and you can see spit coming out, but sometimes you can't see it because it's so small. So if it jumps out and it jumps on one of those particles, and now it becomes a airborne. So the first part of the chain is the pathogen, which is the infectious agent, which is the coronavirus. The second part is the reservoir, where it likes to hang out. The third part is the portal of exit, and that's how it leaves through airborne. It leaves out through singing or speaking. You have other ways that certain pathogens leave your body. They can leave it through an open cut on your skin. You can leave it through sexual transmission. You can leave it through, your tears. And now they're finding that the coronavirus can be transferred through tears. Really haven't heard anything about through sweat and things like that. But it leaves the body. That's portal of exit. Now, once it leaves the body and it actually leaves out, now it has to have a means of transmission. Now, a means of transmission, it could be airborne and you can breathe it in. And so they're finding that these pathogens can actually become airborne, and now the mode of transmission is through the air. They're also finding that the mode of transmission can be from droplets on a surface. I did read that the pathogen, the coronavirus, can stay alive on a surface for up to 3 days. That's very disturbing. I'm sorry, for 3 days or 3 hours. Okay, I just wanted to verify that the coronavirus can live for hours to days on surfaces. And so with that, like on doorknobs or on plastic, and so it can live for quite a bit of time. And so the means of transmission could be direct contact. It can also be through the air. A portal of entry. Now that you have the pathogen, it's either traveling through the air or it's on a surface, now it has to get into somebody. Now, this is why it's so important for us to wash our hands, because we touch surfaces that may be contaminated with the coronavirus, or we may have a cut and it can go inside of us, or we can breathe it in. And so with those things, this is why it's important for us to wash our hands. And this is why it's doubly important for us to wear a mask, because like I said, the coronavirus likes to live in our lungs. And when we cough, speak, and sing, it can come out. And by wearing a mask, it prevents it from becoming airborne. And that actually cuts the chain at the level of mode of transmission. It also cuts the chain because at the point where portal of entry becomes a part, because if I can't breathe it in, and I wash my hands consistently and I don't put it in my eyes, then that way I prevent myself from getting it. And so the other part of the portal of entry is a susceptible host. And so this is where it comes into play that a host is a person who's actually going to carry the pathogen. A susceptible host is someone who is ill or not healthy. And so with that, when a person is ill and not healthy, then their immune system is compromised, which makes them more susceptible to being infected. So if you have diabetes, if you have high blood pressure, if you have a cold, or if you have had medical treatment, then it just makes sense. If you're overweight, it makes sense for you to protect yourself because you become a susceptible host, meaning that it increases your risk of being exposed to the pathogen. So 6 parts of the chain, all 6 has to be present. If you cut any part of the chain, then it will reduce the spread of pathogens. 1, you have the pathogen. If the pathogen is there, then that's only 1 part of the chain. The reservoir, it likes to live in the lungs. Portal of exit, the goal is to get it at the portal of exit. If it can't leave out of you, then it can't infect anyone. And that means it cuts the chain and it reduces the chance of it being spread. Means of transmission, if you are constantly washing your hands, wiping surfaces, making sure you wear a mask, then you prevent it from being transmitted through the air. Port of entry, making sure that you keep your hands, if you have any cuts, make sure you cover them up. Make sure you're washing your hands. That cuts it at that area of the portal of entry. And being a susceptible host. If you have medical conditions, or if you have a low immune system, you need to be careful. You need to reduce your chance. If you don't have to leave the house, don't leave the house. Especially now you have all these people walking around with not a mask on. That is our first line of defense with this virus. And people are not wearing a mask and people are not washing their hands. Then you are at risk, which means that you can get the virus. Let me just tell you this. I spent 24 days in the hospital. I spent 15 days on a vent. I didn't know if I was going to make it, and my family didn't know. I wasn't even with it. They didn't know I wasn't going to make it. I'm 60 days, more than 60 days, post being diagnosed. And I'm still struggling with breathing and coughing. And I am struggling with being fatigued. But I will let you know this. I will not wish this on anybody. And I just pray that you would share this video and let your friends and family know that although it is an inconvenience to wear a mask, believe me, I know. And all this hype about the dangers of wearing a mask, our medical professionals wear it all the time. They're in surgery for hours and hours. I haven't heard complications of someone wearing a mask. If you can't wear a mask, then wear it for that period and then go away from people and take it off so that you can feel, if you're feeling anxious or can't breathe. But I'm telling you, you don't want this disease. You don't want it. And I want us to survive this. And the longer we combat with the facts, the fact that the only way right now that they know that's going to protect us and prevent us from spreading this is by simply wearing a mask and cutting the chain at the level of portal of exit and portal of entry and washing our hands. I pray that you receive this, and I just pray that God's will be done and that He heals our land. God bless.